All right, we are recording. I'll give a brief introduction here. We are using Zoom, which is what Center for Technology and Training uses for all of our trainings. If you want closed captioning, you should be able to turn that on in the ribbon at the bottom of your Zoom window. We're also using the chat as well as the Q&A. I do have online here with me a co-host, Pete Torla. Pete's in his office today, attending from there because I'm testing out some other technology today to present by myself. But if you do have any Q&A, Pete can take care of that. We can jump on that. I am monitoring it, but just in case one slips past. We are going to use Mentimeter again today. If you attended some of our other trainings, that should be familiar to you. If at the end of the training, I'll put a survey link in. It'll be a SurveyMonkey link. It'll be in the Zoom chat, and that will get you your certificate of attendance for today's presentation. And then the slides will also send those out when you receive your certificate of attendance. There also will be another email that will have a link to the recording as well as a link to the slides. All right, so I'm going to turn my camera off here so that you can actually see this QR code. You can use that QR code to join the Mentimeter session. You can also use the go to mentimeter.com and do that. There's also you'll be prompted to enter that 8-digit code in. I'm also going to put into the chat here, maybe not, the link to the Mentimeter as well. We'll put that in here so that if you are attending on a desktop, that will make it maybe a little bit easier for you. Thanks, Pete. All right, so hopefully you've got that. Just a quick thing about Mentimeter. It is anonymous. I can't tell what who says what, so you do have that kind of anonymity to it. It's also really fun, and you can join at any time. The code and the menti.com will be up on the top of every one of the slides. So if you decide partway through that you would like to join, you are welcome to do that, and I appreciate it. It does make things a little bit more fun for all of us if we do that. So for our agenda today, we're going to be talking about meeting roles a little bit. We're also going to be talking about how to make meetings more effective before the meeting, during the meeting, and after. This agenda, we're kind of going to talk about the roles and things all the way through this. So this agenda is kind of a rough idea of what kind of topics we're going to cover, but it isn't so prescriptive that we're going to go through meeting roles and then proceed on to before, after, during. So my first question for you, this is a multiple choice one for the Mentimeter folks. Which of these tasks do you do regularly? Do you plan meetings? Do you attend meetings? Or do you run meetings? And you should be able to answer more than one thing. And I'm curious, if you want to put in the chat, I'm curious how many folks are planning a meeting that they don't actually attend. If we've got any administrative folks in the audience today where you might be asked to plan a meeting, but you aren't going to be a participant in that meeting. I'd be curious to hear from you guys. It looks like a lot of folks are attending a lot of meetings. Some folks are running, and some folks are on the planning side. A little bit of all of it. So I do appreciate those of you who are participating in Menti. Like I said, you can join in whenever, and also feel free to put your answers in the chat if you don't want to or aren't able to join the Menti. You can dump them in the chat and I'll see them there too. All right. So here's a question for you. This is a type in your answer type question. What makes a meeting inefficient? What are some things that kind of derail a meeting or maybe set you up for failure right from the start? If you are talking about meetings, not having a leader, not having a clear direction or somebody to run the meeting, a lack of an agenda, sidebars, yes, off topics, tangent topics, getting off topic, no outline, lack of objective, going in circles, repetition, people getting off topic. Yes. All right. This is great. No desired outcomes. That's a great point. Whoever made that one, that is great. No pre-planning. A meeting that isn't needed when an email would do. Yes. That is the classic, this meeting could have been an email, right? That is what we are trying to avoid, and hopefully we can help you guys out a little bit. Too many attendees, yeah, sometimes this meeting can get off track just because it isn't narrowed down enough. One person dominating the whole meeting, people talking over one another, Not enough time planned. Yes, that is an excellent point. Awesome. Meeting just to meet was in the chat. Yes, that is another one of, do we really need to be doing this? All right, let's move on. These are all great things. Distracted people, clashing personalities. Awesome. Thank you guys for these answers. We've got another one for you. If you've attended a meeting that was productive, like you got a lot done in it, it was a really good meeting. You came out of it and you felt like that was a good use of my time. What made it productive? So first we asked, like, what derails a meeting, but what makes a meeting really productive and really helpful and something that you feel like this was a good use of my time. We accomplished a lot during this meeting. Having an effective moderator, having a clear agenda, assigning tasks and having assigned tasks, answering questions, and the agenda that everybody had a copy of ahead of time. Focused, starts on time, short to the point. Yeah, we're not wasting everybody's time. Having a clear outline and objective to it, being prepared, knowing the goal, following up on those pending items. Yes, that is huge. Using a parking lot. Yep. Decisiveness, something relative. Yeah, if it's a relevant thing to what you're trying to do during your day-to-day work. These are all great ones. Purposes and goals. Back and forth. Yeah, having a communication where you feel like you're listened to, as well as feeling like you can listen to other people, like they are able to give you good feedback. These are all awesome. Clear action items, respecting people's time. Yes, summary of action items at the end. Awesome. This is all good stuff, and we're going to talk about a lot of this. Clear decision, clear focused from the chat. These are awesome. Okay, thank you all. One more question and then I'm going to talk a little bit. So how about these? I'm going to turn my camera off so everybody can see all of the options here. Which of these is a good reason to have a meeting? So coordinating with others, sharing an update, gathering information, brainstorming, problem solving, seeking input from people, making decisions, or making an announcement. Which of those do you feel like you should be able to do more than one, but what do you feel like are good reasons to have a meeting versus maybe not as good reasons? And like I said, you'll get all of these slides. And the awesome thing is when I share the slides, you get to see the results of all of these. All right, so it looks like coordinating with others, brainstorming, and problem solving are all kind of the top reasons, where making an announcement or sharing an update are kind of on the bottom, which I would fully agree with. Making an announcement and having updates, those aren't necessarily reasons to have a meeting. Because for one, a lot of times if you're doing those announcements or sharing an update, there are going to be situations where having a written copy of that is maybe more valuable to people, especially if you're sharing information about, for example, here at Michigan Tech, we're changing, it is open enrollment time in November, so don't ignore any emails from your HR department this time of year. But it is open enrollment here at Michigan Tech, and they're changing the system that we use a little bit. So we've gotten quite a few emails about that, but we haven't had, like, as a center, we haven't had a meeting to discuss. It's open enrollment. They're changing the system. There have been some emails that have been sent out by Michigan Tech's HR, and then our director and associate director have sent out some messages just saying, hey, remember that it's a little bit different. And we've had some conversation like in our office group chat about it, but we haven't had a specific meeting because that isn't particularly helpful for folks, because everybody's situation is going to be a little bit different, etc. Whereas having a meeting to coordinate, we always have a meeting. The Center for Technology and Training here, we do 4 big conferences every year, and we have meetings before those conferences to do some coordination so that everything is taken care of. We also have a meeting at the end of the conference to kind of problem solve and work out any things that maybe we think we could do better next time. So those are good reasons to have a meeting, when you need to collaborate with other people, but sharing an update or making an announcement, those aren't great reasons to have a meeting. That's better served with an email or a poster or some other form of communication. All right, so This is the definition from dictionary.com. And I like it because it's an assembly or conference of persons for a specific purpose. And so when many of you talked about that, when I asked about, what makes a good meeting, is that there's a goal, there's an agenda, there is a clear, specific thing that we are trying to accomplish at this meeting. And the opposite is true if you go into a meeting that has no clear purpose or clear goal. Sometimes we have meetings just to have a meeting. That is also, somebody mentioned that we've gotten in the habit where we always have this meeting. That is not a good reason to have a meeting. So let's talk a little bit more about this. So is this meeting isn't even necessary? What is the purpose of this meeting? That's also going to help you. Some of you mentioned having too many people at a meeting, which can also derail things. The more people you have, the more likely, especially the more people that you have that aren't central to the goal of whatever that meeting is, the more likely that everything's going to get derailed and things are going to get off topic. So especially when we're at the very beginning, do we really need this meeting or not? We can think about things in terms of, could this meeting maybe be something like a phone call? Maybe it's between 1 or 2 people, and we could just make this a phone call and knock it out. We don't need to invite the whole world to this. Maybe it could be an email, especially if it's something that you were expecting people to refer back to. Doing it in a meeting format is not always as helpful because people, they don't have that record of what was discussed. Should it be a memo? Maybe it's something that's distributed to everybody. Maybe it's a little bit more formal. Again, that could be something that takes the place of a meeting that's announcing or updating people on something. Maybe it's a survey. Like if you are trying to brainstorm, sometimes having a survey that you sent out, even maybe you do have a meeting to discuss the survey results, but if you are trying to decide something, giving people some options to kind of mull over, sometimes can then make that meeting more effective because people have they're not coming into it with no ideas. You have given them something to chew on a little bit, and then they can talk about what they like, what they don't like, maybe maybe they want to tweak one of the options that you gave in a survey. It gives you a little bit more structure to that meeting because you've prepared them a little bit as opposed to going into something completely blind. Sometimes a meeting can be an agenda item at another meeting. It doesn't have to be its own separate meeting. If you are already meeting for something else and it is relevant to that meeting and the same people are all there, maybe it's an agenda item. Maybe even if not all the same people are there, but you say, hey, for the first 15 minutes, we're going to talk about this. And, we're going to have Todd is going to join us for the first 10 or 15 minutes, and then we'll wrap this agenda item up, and then he can take off because the rest of the meeting doesn't apply to him, and the rest of us will stay and finish things. There are a lot of options, and I think sometimes we get stuck in a box of this is how we've always done it, and we don't change things up even when things are not functioning the way that we might like them to. The other piece is that maybe something can be a shared editable document. So if you are a supervisor and you expect all of your supervisees to report and do an update to you, that is a really common thing, right? But what happens sometimes is if you have a specific meeting for that, you might have, depending on if people's work is integrated with one another or if their work is really siloed, if you have a meeting where everybody attends and they each one by one go around the table and update you, that might not be the most effective way to have that meeting. It might be more effective to have a shared document that everybody can put their update into, and you can check it. They can update it as needed, and other people can still see it, because sometimes there is some benefit to having those meetings where maybe you hear something from somebody else. It might not necessarily directly affect what you're doing, but it might spark something. There is some benefit, right? The meeting just to meet, or the meeting for like entertainment, social interaction value. That is a reason that some people really want to meet. But that also can be a waste of time for a lot of people. So this gives a little bit of that interaction and maybe in a more productive way. All right, so who do we want to be at this meeting? This is a big piece of this. We talked about having too many people at a meeting. When we are deciding what the goal of the meeting is, this should really narrow down who is my attendee list. So if my attendee list, if there's people there where their input their decision making, etc., does not directly impact the goal of the meeting, why are they there? Um, this is just another opportunity for things to get derailed. And also, I know we've all had this experience where you've been in a meeting where you didn't know why you were there, and you also maybe didn't have anything to contribute to the meeting, and it can be really difficult to stay engaged. It's hard, to resist, especially when you are a busy person, to resist the temptation to, like, well, I could check my email right now because they're talking about stuff that does not relate to me at all. And that, it's a rude thing to do. We don't want to be that person, and especially, if you're on the other side of it and you are running a meeting and you've got people who are obviously disengaged from what you're talking about, that's not great. But that, again, comes back to, do you have the right people at this meeting? Have you really narrowed it down? Now, sometimes you've got folks where they want to be involved in the meeting, or at least they want to have some knowledge of what is talked about, and not necessarily like as a nosy neighbor kind of thing, but like, maybe a supervisor. They're a really busy person, but they don't have time to come to this meeting. This is why taking some notes during the meeting and having some of those action items, having some record of what was decided or talked about during the meeting, you can then send that to them, and it's maybe a couple of lines, short thing that they can see. Oh, okay. Do you need anything from me? No. All right. Everybody moves on with their lives. All right. So we've decided we need a meeting because we are doing something that does require a meeting. Maybe we are collaborating in some way where we do need to have a meeting. Now we need to decide a little bit about where and when this meeting is going to happen. Before the meeting, we want to make sure that we are prepared as a host, and also that our attendees are prepared for what we expect of them. All right. So meeting attendees, you want to clearly communicate as somebody who's planning this meeting. What's the role? Like, why is this person coming to this meeting? If they are an internal person or an external person, you might have to treat them a little bit differently. Sometimes people forget that collaboration tools sometimes that work really well within a company don't always translate to working really well outside if you've got somebody from the outside coming in. You want to look at schedules, locations, their availability, and also every person, there is value to having them at that meeting if you have decided, like, we need this person's input. But if you've got the head of a organization versus someone who's a little bit lower level, there's maybe more demands on that person's time. So trying to find a time that works for folks can be difficult, but starting with who has the least availability, and then try and work things from there. And sometimes, being able to ask folks if they can be flexible is helpful. Something that happens, I've seen it happen a few times, is that folks will look at a calendar and they'll say, oh, everybody's free at noon, or everybody's free at 11:30, whatever, whenever your office takes lunch. And like, let's meet then. That is not, I would not advise that. People might come to your meeting, but they're not going to be their best selves, because they're either going to be hungry or they're going to have be eating their lunch. They're not going to be as engaged as they would be if you could find another time. So I would recommend that you avoid scheduling those lunch meetings, unless it can be a nice perk if you can provide lunch. I know we're calling these meetings lunch and learns. We are not obviously providing lunch to you, but that can be helpful depending on what you're trying to do. So here is another question. This is a type your answer in question. How do you ask, why am I invited to this, in a way that is polite and maybe does not feel like you are saying this meeting is dumb and I don't want to come to it? What is my expected contribution? That one's great. What do you need me to contribute to this meeting? Yes. What is my role? How is my role contributing? Is my expertise needed? What info should I bring? Yes. How can I prepare for this meeting would be another way to ask that. So is this the most productive use of my expertise? That one might come off a little bit rude to some people. There might be a softer way to ask that. What can I do to prepare for this? How can I make this an effective meeting? Instead of is this the most productive use of my expertise? It might be, how can my expertise contribute to this meeting? What do I need to do to prepare for this? Yeah, how can I prepare? What do I need to do to prepare? What is my role? What is the goal of this meeting is also a way to ask that. Like what is this meeting? What do you want to get out of this meeting? And sometimes I have had this on both sides, both as a planner of a meeting, as well as the a attendee of the meeting. I've been on both sides of it, where that question, what is the goal of this meeting? What is what are you trying to accomplish at the end of this meeting, has either meant that I did not have to attend it, or made me realize like, oh, I actually don't need you to attend this meeting. I can follow up with you afterwards about what we decide, but you specifically don't actually need to be here. Which is, that this is a way to clarify this. And so if you are the one who is planning a meeting, every person that you're inviting, you should be able to answer that question is, why are you inviting this person? What is their role? What is the goal that they are going, or how are they going to help you accomplish the goal of this meeting? You should be able to answer that, because if they ask you and you don't have an answer, why did you invite them in the first place? But there are, like I said, there are some soft ways to ask this so that it does not come off like, why are you wasting my time? Because that is, in terms of office harmony, not always the best way to approach these situations. So in terms of planning a meeting, the communications that you're going to be sending, you want to make sure that people understand the intent of the meeting, what their role is going to be, and then how they need to prepare for that meeting. So if you are going to send materials for them to review, or if they need to bring something to the meeting, they need to know that ahead of time. The meeting location, we need to choose someplace that's functional, that's comfortable, that's convenient, and that is safe for us. And we'll talk about the safety, because that, especially if you're working in an office environment, that one might not make a whole lot of sense. But the meeting space has to be functional. So if you need technology, do you know how the technology works? Do you have the right technology? If you're going to be doing some collaboration work where you want to be able to spread a bunch of information out, paper, or maybe you want something to draw on, whatever, is there space for you to do that? If you are discussing something that is confidential, or maybe that is not ready for prime time, do you have a place to do that that's private? Does that meeting space accommodate that? Comfort. Okay. So this is really important if you want to get the best out of people in terms of your meeting space. Do you have enough space? Are people crammed in next to each other? They're not going to feel as comfortable in a space where they are super crammed in. Is the temperature in the room something that is a comfortable, normal temperature? 63 degrees might be a little bit on the chilly side. Is it too hot? Is it too cold? Again, people aren't going to be as comfortable. If it's something where you don't have a lot of control over the temperature, like in whatever meeting space you have, give people a heads up when you invite them. Say, hey, our conference room doesn't have air conditioning, heads up, right? So somebody doesn't show up thinking that there is air conditioning and sweat the whole meeting. Airflow, again, a meeting that is in a really stuffy room, people get angrier. They also get dumber. This is like there's a lot of science regarding like air quality within buildings. When you have a stuffy room that doesn't have airflow and you start to build up CO2, you start to get sleepier, you start to get grumpier, and you start to get dumber. So trying to brainstorm, reach decisions, etc., especially if you're trying to do so in a collaborative way, like work together, you need to have some airflow in that room. If you're going to schedule a meeting that's really long, you need to also schedule in some breaks so that people can get up, they can stretch, they can get a little blood flow going, use a restroom, get some coffee, get something to drink, etc. If it's going to be a really long meeting, you either need to provide refreshments for people or let them know that you are not doing that so they know how to prepare. And if you're going to have like an all-day meeting, you're not providing lunch, you need to give a long enough break for people to go and get something to eat. This, again, it can be something that is really easy to kind of lose track of, especially if like the goal of this meeting is to do this specific thing. But you also have to think about the people that you are asking to accomplish this goal are human beings who have human needs. Convenience. So this is another piece, especially when you're traveling, travel distance. If you are asking a bunch of people to come to you, does it make more sense for you to go to them? Especially if they're all in one central location. Time of year and time of day, especially here in Michigan, and Alaska as well, where you have long stretches of the year where it is dark and it is snowy and icy and maybe not the best weather. Is there a better time of year or time of day? Or even if you have to have it a certain time of day or time of year, can you maybe give a little bit of grace? You know, if it's a snowstorm or something, can we delay that meeting a little bit until roads are a little bit safer to drive on? Parking is a big thing, especially local agencies. I know I have visited a few of your agencies, and sometimes parking as an outsider, it can be really confusing. Am I allowed to park here? Is this a designated parking space? Am I going to be in the way? Giving people a map or giving people some idea of where should they park, where they can, especially if you've got a meeting that's going to go all day, where they're not going to be in the way at your facility. All right, safety. So sometimes we have meetings that are on site, like on a construction site. And when we have those types of meetings, we have to think about PPE. What is needed? Who's going to provide it? Do you expect that the attendees are going to provide their own, or are you going to provide something for them? Is the PPE something that is reasonable for them to have? You know, a lot of folks at agencies have, if they don't have their own hard hat, vest, etc., they at least have somebody they can borrow it from. But something like if you're on a site where you're over water or something and you need a life vest, that's probably going to be on you to help provide some life vests for folks if you're asking them to come on site, because they probably don't have life vests hanging around that they can borrow on a moment's notice. Some of those other, you know, PPE things that might be helpful is a lot of times on a site, you know, having a pocket full of extra earplugs for people to be able to give out can be helpful. And then again, if we're talking about safety, can you see what you need to see from a distance, maybe where you don't need to worry about any PPE? People can just come in their street clothes and it'll be fine. All right, as a host for meeting preparation, you want to provide any materials that you expect people to review as promptly as possible, as far in advance as possible, so that they have time to actually take a look at them. If you provide a 500-page document 2 hours before a meeting, folks aren't going to, if they get the email and see it before the meeting, they certainly are not going to have time to review that with any level of depth, right? They might be able to kind of look at the first and last page and get an idea of what it is, but they're not going to be able to give you any kind of in-depth feedback on that document. Same thing with technology. If you are expecting people to bring technology, you need to have a space for them to be able to plug laptops and stuff in, especially with a long meeting. If you are using Zoom or Teams, you want to make sure you understand the settings, and that you, if you've got people who are not used to it, that's why at the beginning of all of these, as many of you have attended more than one of our trainings, but at the beginning, we always say, closed captioning is available. You can use the Zoom chat, you can use the Zoom Q&A, it's anonymous, etc. You want to make sure that people understand technology, what the needs are, what their needs are, and what their understanding is. The physical space, like I said, you want to make it sure that it's comfortable and safe, functional for whatever your meeting is. And then you also, before the meeting, want to assign any roles that you might have for during the meeting. Maybe you want to assign somebody specific to take meeting minutes if you're unable, like if maybe you're going to be up at the front, you know, writing stuff down on a whiteboard or whatnot. You might want to assign somebody specifically to take meeting minutes. Or maybe you need somebody who's your assistant for the day for this meeting. Like maybe you did order lunch and somebody's going to have to run up to the front and let the delivery person in with whatever the lunch is. You want to have that kind of laid out and thought out beforehand, so you're not scrambling during your meeting. Communications, before a meeting, you want to make sure that you have given people the agenda. Give people agenda before the meeting so that they understand what you're going to talk about. It doesn't even have to be a very detailed, full-blown agenda. but a few bullet points about what it is that we're going to be talking about during this meeting, what the goal is. Giving people the location and especially being considerate of external attendees who might not have the same access to the building or the facility that you do, making sure that if your facility is hard to find, that they have some maps and pictures, etc. If you are going to provide any kind of refreshments or meals, making sure that that's taken care of, and then also communicating those requirements and expectations. If they need to have PPE, if they need to bring a laptop, if they need to bring printouts or something, that folks understand what is being expected of them. All right, during the meeting, let's talk about some things that we can do during a meeting. What are some good rules for meeting etiquette for a meeting host? And this is one that you can type your answers in. Oh yeah, that's an excellent one. Asking about dietary restrictions if you are providing food. That is, folks more and more often have some kind of dietary restriction. So asking folks, what you can do to provide for them. Also, I'm somebody who does have dietary restrictions. I often just make sure I pack a granola bar or something so that if I am in that kind of a situation, I'm not sitting there with a tummy that's grumbling out throughout the entire meeting. So as a host, starting on time, being mindful of the time, establishing some kind of ground rules for the meeting. Like maybe you raise your hand if you have a question, asking folks to put their phones on silent, staying within the time allotted. Yes. Introductions. Yeah, especially if you have a group of people who don't know each other, it's really important. Making people feel welcome includes making sure people know each other and a little bit of background. I think it's also helpful to give folks the person's name, what agency or consultant firm or whatever, who do they work for, and then maybe a little bit about what their role is, so you have an idea of where in the organization is this person. Establishing some meeting rules. Yeah, setting some meeting rules right from the start. Facilitating input from those who are not outspoken. A lot of times people who are quieter are going to get talked over, or they might not feel comfortable sharing their thoughts. And a lot of times they might have really good input. Keeping the meeting on track by making sure they get through the agenda. Equal expectations and interaction with everybody. Yes, these are all some good things. So establishing those meeting rules at the very beginning. If you have them, you can also send them out before the meeting. Here's expectations for everybody who's going to participate in this meeting. There's some easy ground rules, like, hey, don't curse at other people. But there are some other ones, like somebody said, raising your hand. Especially if you have a larger group of people, that can be really helpful to kind of make sure that people are able to contribute to the meeting, and also making sure that people have some equal time as well. You can also do something like letting people know ahead of time that you're going to ask them to participate. If you've got specific questions, giving people a heads up. Letting people know where restrooms, emergency exits, and shelters. Yes, that is very important, especially if you've got folks who are from out of your office area and might not know. The restrooms hopefully are something that folks will need more often than the emergency exits and shelters, but the time to let people know about those things is before there is an emergency that they need. All right, these are all good things. Okay, so I think you should be able to vote on those, but we'll just move on from that. As a host, you should respect people's times. Many of you said that. You want to start on time, you want to continue on time. Something that sometimes happens is that you have somebody who comes in late to a meeting, and the host will derail the meeting to get that person caught up. You don't have to do that, right? They didn't make the meeting on time. We just continue on from there. Hopefully you are taking some notes and some meeting minutes. They can get that information after it, because otherwise that person's disruption of coming in late, now we are wasting more time, more of everyone else's time to get them caught up. They came in late, and I realize stuff happens, right? Sometimes like you're on a phone call, it's an important phone call, you end up coming in late to a meeting. This isn't to like vilify anybody who has ever been late to a meeting, but it's important to keep that meeting moving along rather than getting that person all the way caught up. If it is a long discussion, they'll get caught up. And if you have already moved past some other things, they can get that information later in the meeting minutes. Again, it's important to guide that discussion and kind of guide the conversation. So shutting down side conversations or allowing people to talk, being able to get the most out of maybe people who are a little bit quieter, making people feel welcome. I think that introduction, that is a huge piece of that, making sure that folks know who else is at the meeting. And then the other piece that's really important as a host is that follow-up after the meeting to discuss action items or future things that need to be done, future meetings, etc. All right, so what are some good meeting rules for an attendee? What are some things as an attendee that are just good meeting etiquette? Being on time, yes. Staying off your phone. We all have a phone in our pocket now. It is so tempting, especially if a discussion maybe doesn't 100% apply to you, or you're waiting on an email that you know is really important, or you're waiting on a phone call that is really important, to check that phone. Depending on the meeting, it might be something where you say, hey, no phones for this meeting. Not interrupting people, not talking over one another, staying engaged, staying on topic, being prepared, participating. That's a huge part of, if you have been asked to a meeting, you've established why you are needed at this meeting, what the goal of this meeting is. Participating is going to make the meeting go faster, right? You're going to get to that goal quicker, and you're going to get to that accomplishing that goal faster. Being ready to take notes and participate, yes. Yeah, finding an alternative if you're sick, or even, sometimes stuff comes up, you can't make a meeting. Having those meeting minutes and then actually reading them. A lot of times we get sent meeting minutes and we don't read them. Making sure that is part of being a good meeting attendee. Listening, refraining from cracking jokes. I mean, it depends, right? It depends. You want to have a little bit of humor in the office, but you also want to make sure that meeting continues on. And sometimes, the fun part of it can get a little out of hand, and now we are not accomplishing what we need to do. Respecting people's time and their skill levels. Yes. Coming into a meeting as if you know everything is not a great way to be a good meeting attendee. You want to be respectful of other people's expertise as well as contributing your own. Because there have also been meetings where I have thought, I don't know why I'm attending this. And then while I was there, it was very helpful because I was able to provide a different perspective from the rest of the folks who were there. Making sure to include remote attendees. Yes, especially if you're doing a hybrid meeting where you've got some people who are in the room and you got some people who are online, making sure that those online people feel like they are part of the group. So making sure that they can hear things, making sure that they can see, that you can share documents or whatnot, making sure that you have a speaker so that if they talk, you could hear them as well. All of that is important stuff. All right. So attendees, you should be prepared, you should be engaged, and you should come with a collaborative spirit, right? So you should come into the meeting with a attitude that you are going to work together as a team for whatever the goal of this meeting is. And we are going to accomplish that goal in the time allotted. When you're planning that meeting, you want to make sure that you have enough time for whatever the goal is. Some meetings have to be longer meetings, but like I said, making sure that you have broken that meeting up a little bit and into some chunks, having some intermediary goals, having that agenda laid out about what we're talking to. The other thing that sometimes happens is that people have an agenda and they have a meeting time, but it is more helpful with that agenda to have a specific amount of time that you expect to spend on each agenda item, because that I have seen so many meetings that have gone off the rails because we spent we have an hour, we spent 50 minutes on the first agenda item and we've got 4 more agenda items. We're not getting to those, right? Those agenda items are not going to get the same level of care that the first one did because we spent so much time on it. So having that idea and actually putting that in the agenda, that also gives you a little bit more flexibility if you do have a situation where you're like, oh, we need this person to come in for this specific discussion, but they don't have to be here for the whole meeting. If you're able to tell people this is how much time each one of these is expected and then be able to stick to that, that gives you that flexibility to pull somebody in mid-meeting to give their 2 cents, and then they can leave because they know, like, oh, about 15 minutes in, I can pop in there and listen to this piece, give my feedback, and then I can leave. But if you've got a situation where you don't have a specific time assigned to each agenda item, there's no way for them to do anything but basically attend the whole meeting, which they don't need to do. All right, so here's a question for folks. In your meetings, are you taking meeting minutes? It depends. Yes, no. Lots of it depends. There are definitely some situations where maybe meeting minutes are a little bit overkill. But I think the other issue with this is a lot of times we think of meeting minutes as being super formal because a lot of times they are formal. So this whole talk here is about, your average meeting at your organization. This isn't about like a public meeting. Public meetings, there are very specific requirements for how meeting minutes are taken, how the meeting is conducted, etc. The Open Meetings Act, public meetings, that kind of thing. That's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about just, your average around the office or around a job site type meeting, where these meeting minutes don't need to be quite that level of formality. And I think that is the crux of things, is that you should have some meeting minutes for any meeting that you're going to be attending, to talk about, what are the action items afterwards, what did we decide, what did we talk about, etc. They don't necessarily have to be super formalized the way that they would be for like a public meeting, but there should be something that can be sent out afterwards of, this is what we talked about, this is what especially for anybody who might have missed the meeting, because stuff happens and sometimes folks miss meetings. You should have something, and they can be a very I think the other piece is that oftentimes, I know personally at least, I'm like, ooh, some of these aren't even complete sentences. This is like, just a phrase or something. This doesn't necessarily have to be that formal. Something that is going to get the idea across of what was discussed, that will work. We don't necessarily, for a lot of shorter meetings, have to provide something that is really polished, right? The idea is what happened at this meeting for somebody who couldn't make it, or who just needs to know the information after the fact. And it also then makes your follow-up a lot easier if you have taken meeting minutes, because then you know about action items that might have been discussed, maybe future meetings that need to be scheduled, etc. Otherwise, you're just kind of relying on your own memory for what did we talk about during this meeting? And that's why a lot of meetings, sometimes they don't feel like we've accomplished anything, because we haven't recorded what those action items are going to be. There's no accountability for anybody who was in the meeting. People don't remember that they agreed to do something. There's all that. Whereas if you have some type of written record, that's really helpful. Something that I will mention is that if you are, I'm a pencil and paper person more than like a type on a computer or tablet kind of person. You can take your written notes. You can use Google. I don't know if Apple, I assume Apple has an option for this, but you can use, there's an app that is Google. It's not like Google Chat or Google Email or Google, it's just Google. And they have an app where you can take a picture and it will translate your handwriting into text. So you can go from having something written out like that to having actual written, typed out meeting minutes really easily. You'll probably have to do maybe a little bit of tweaking, a little bit of editing, but even with some pretty chicken scratch writing, it kind of figures it out. So that is something that I would advise, where you can handwrite some notes, snap a picture of it, turn it into text, and then go from there. So like I said, meeting minutes are important. They record what was discussed, they record action items, and they also help to avoid any misunderstandings. Like I said, sometimes people don't realize that an action item has been assigned to them because they're like, oh, I just thought we were talking in generalities. And like, no, you were supposed to do that. This avoids any of those types of misunderstandings. And that isn't to say that that is a malicious thing, but sometimes people, they just don't realize that they have been assigned a task. Or that there was going to be a follow-up meeting. Maybe it's like, oh, everybody go out, gathers this information. We're going to come back and talk about it. They didn't know that that was the plan. All right, so how do you decide who should take meeting minutes? Is it the host that's taking it? Is it somebody designated by the host? How do we decide that? What do we think? Host or somebody designated by the host? Designated person, host, the host should designate. Assistant, yeah. So a lot of the times, the other piece that falls apart here with meeting minutes is that at the start of the meeting, nobody knows that the meeting minutes are gonna be taken, right? Host, whoever has the ability to listen and write at the same time, yeah. Best handwriting, there's always typing them up. Admin assistant, yeah, sometimes it is part of somebody's job description that they take meeting minutes. It's designated person. Yeah, if you are hosting the meeting, it can be really difficult to talk and write and host all at the same time. That's a lot to ask of most folks. In a team, rotate the responsibility. Yeah, that is a great point. If it is a client, you always have somebody who is the consultant is taking the minutes. You're not having you're not asking your client to do that work for you. Somebody who's familiar with the project. Yeah, especially if there's acronyms or terminology that somebody might not be aware of, that is going to be helpful, because otherwise I've also seen meeting minutes that were not particularly usable because you're like, I don't know what the heck they're talking about. That's what did they mean? What is this? So having somebody who knows what is going on is helpful. But yes, at the beginning of that meeting, you want to designate somebody who is going to take those minutes and make sure that that person understands what level of meeting minutes you are expecting to be taken. You can also maybe give them a template or something that they can take those notes on, that maybe has, like a space for action items, follow-ups, etc. That can be really helpful, but you don't want to just assume that, like, oh, we'll just combine everybody's notes afterwards, or that, like, we'll figure it out. Have a plan for who's going to take those notes from the very beginning. So productive disruptions. Sometimes you're going to have some side conversations that are not a frivolous side conversation. Like, people are discussing something and they are discussing it. They're discussing something that's productive, right? It's just not relevant to you and it's not relevant to this meeting. And that can be really difficult to shut down, because you're like, ooh, but like, that does need to get resolved. It just doesn't need to get resolved right now or here. And so that can be really difficult. I saw this suggestion. I've never done it. I don't know anybody who's ever done it. But the suggestion was that at the start of a meeting, you're establishing some ground rules. They said that if anybody during the meeting at any time can say the word octopus, And that is an indication that like we have gotten off track because, you know, an octopus has 8 legs with like little suckers on it. It's really easy for it to grab onto something and start to pull it in another direction. Um, I don't know that anyone will actually do this, but it is a suggestion that sort of like you know, on a construction sites that really value safety, there oftentimes you'll hear the idea that anybody from, you know, from the janitor to the company president has the ability to shut the job site down if there's a safety concern. The idea with this is anybody in that meeting, if the meeting starts to drift off course, has the ability to pull the meeting back, you know, octopus, we are off track, let's get back to the agenda, let's get back to the meeting. Like I said, I don't know that any of you will actually use that, but having that, establishing a rule at the beginning where anybody can say, hey, like we're starting to get off track. As a host, being able to say, hey guys, this sounds like it's really important, but you should schedule a time. You can schedule a time right now to talk about this, but now this is not what this meeting is for. All right. So what are some strategies when you start to get a meeting that is getting off topic, that is going in a direction that you don't want it to go? And like I said, sometimes it's not even that's a necessarily negative thing. It might be a really productive conversation. It's just that it's not relevant to this meeting. Octopus, yes. Just say it. Yeah. I realize sometimes that is easier said than done, especially if the people who have gotten off topic are senior to you and you are running that meeting. Sometimes it is harder. Ask them to discuss it later in order to respect everybody's time. Yes, that is a great way to kindly, yeah, keeping a parking lot. That I did not discuss a parking lot here, but that is a great idea. So a parking lot is something where maybe it's a great suggestion or it is a great topic. It's just not relevant right now. Having a parking lot, it might be a question where you're like, ooh, we do not have time to get into that right now. It's not a bad question. Or it's something that like, we should talk about this offline or after the meeting. Having a parking lot where those don't get lost, but also they don't start to wreck your meeting. Suggesting the topic gets covered at a few, let's stay at the topic of hand. We can circle back. Establishing a parking lot as a meeting norm. Yeah, so that it is not a personal attack that like, geez, you always derail our meetings with your off-topic discussions. We always have a parking lot for everything. And it is a way for us to get back to those topics. They don't get lost and forgotten about, but we also respect everybody else's time and we don't waste it. All right, those are all excellent answers. All right, engage in the group. We want to make sure that we're getting the best out of everybody that we have invited, our small group, small as possible. So what are some ways that we can encourage discussion from our attendees that might be reluctant to share? One of the things that I think it can be really helpful is to have that agenda given to people ahead of time, so that they can be prepared, and maybe even asking them, hey, I'm going to solicit some information from you or your opinion about something, about this particular topic. I come with some ideas. Asking them really specific questions can also be really helpful. Asking somebody, what do you think about, you know, the project versus do you think that this software has been effective for us? Or what are some issues that maybe you've had, or what did you like best about whatever? Having some of those types of questions can be really helpful. Yeah, being really specific. John, has this happened on one of your projects? Calling on them directly. Yeah, especially if you just say, does anybody have any comments? The people who are comfortable talking in a group, you're going to get answers from them. You're not going to get answers from the quiet ones. So you may have to specifically say, we're going to go around the table and everybody's going to have, you know, a minute to discuss their opinion about this particular thing. Everybody needs to participate. Yeah, providing them some homework ahead of time so people feel a little bit more prepared, especially if they're not used to speaking in a group, or if they're Yes, that is another great thing, is starting with the newest or most junior attendee. That can be really helpful. You want to make sure that they get some, they know that that's going to happen. Springing that on people right in the meeting might not give you the best feedback, but yes, letting people kind of get it out of the way and then sit back and listen to maybe some of the other things that folks have said. Yeah, some targeted questions about their particular expertise, the reason that you invited them to the meeting. Yeah, remote people often don't get the same opportunity that people who are in the room have. So making sure that they stay engaged and you do have that ability. So again, that goes back to the technology. Do you have speakers so that you can hear them? Do you have a method so that they feel like they are included in the meeting? Do you have your camera on, etc., so that they can see you, you can see them? Those are all good things. All right, excellent. So after the meeting, we're almost to the end here. After that meeting, you want to make sure that you follow up. If there are action items that people know and that there is a name assigned to the action item so that they know that they are responsible for that action item. Because I have also seen that where you have an action item, it's not specifically assigned in those meeting minutes. So everybody's like, well, somebody else is going to take care of that. Surely. No. Making sure that you have an actual name assigned to each thing. If there are any decisions that were made during that meeting, having that follow up, in the meeting, this is what we decided. So again, people there's no misunderstandings. And this can kind of serve, this follow up can serve as your meeting minutes. It could be an email, a short email afterwards that goes out to people and making sure that everybody is on the same page. If there are any future meetings or side meetings maybe that you discuss that need to be scheduled, making sure that that happens. And then if there were any optional attendees, maybe somebody that they did not need to be in this meeting, but the information that was decided might be relevant to them or they might care about, maybe a supervisor or something like that, making sure that they also get CC'd on that so that they have that information. All right. This is our last question here. How can you politely ask the host about action items or future steps after a meeting? Because sometimes you have a meeting and there is no follow-up and you're like, are we doing anything with that or what's going on? What are some ways that you can phrase that question? Just ask, yes. Hey, are there action items? Is there what who's doing what? When is the next meeting? Maybe even offering some potential dates, emailing them, saying, hey, yeah, sometimes people are busy, right? Sometimes asking, what was I assigned during this meeting? I want to make sure that I do all of the things. I knew that I was supposed to do A, B, and C. Is that it? What are the next steps? Is there anything you need from me? That's a great way to ask that question. Asking for a copy of the minutes also can maybe a prompt to have that follow-up. Email, yeah, something where you can kind of push a little bit. You want to be polite, but you also want to say like, hey, where are we going with this? Having a summary of what the action items were, yeah, that is all really helpful. Excellent. So we are at the top of the hour. Thank you guys so much for attending today's presentation. What I'm going to do is drop in the SurveyMonkey link for you guys. Just give me 1 second and we'll have that for you. You can also, like I said, you can attend, take a look at any of our future trainings at that CTT website that's on the screen there. We do appreciate you guys attending today's presentation. Pete's dropped it in there for you. The SurveyMonkey link will be available for 24 hours. I encourage you to fill out the survey right now. What you'll be able to do is fill that out. You'll get your certificate of attendance. We'll also email you the recording and the slides and everything. You also get an opportunity to give some evaluation about what you thought about this, if you want other topics in the future. And yeah, if you are able to grab that link, you're free to go. I encourage you to do it right now. If you have any problems with it, I'll help you out. But other than that, thank you so much for attending today, and we will see you hopefully in the future. Thanks a bunch.